Pieter T'Jonck, as chief editor, recently appointed chief editor of A+. Up to you to, let's say, do the parallel trick, maybe, and give your perspective on architecture.
Okay, yeah. Well, actually, Joachim, you asked me to react a bit on what was said and mentioned here today, and I had been thinking the whole day about this, and one of the first, of course you did that because in the last issue of A+, we tried to make a case for another type of practice that is more open, more experimental, also tries to develop new tools to meet societal and other problems that are at hand. But the whole day long I felt that, especially in Istanbul, but actually I think, and I'm afraid we're going a bit the same way, that all of what is happening there, and it has been talked about, is happening against a very gloomy worldwide background. And I will use a slight citation of Slavoj Žižek, who's always very good at being gloomy, we could say that he says that contemporary worldwide classicism, which aims at an expansion of markets, a strong restriction of the public space, a diminishment of public amenities such as healthcare, education, culture, etc., is combined with an increasingly authoritarian public political power. We could see it in Greece, or for instance in the revolts of Gezi Park in Istanbul. All contestations in these regions are about specific combinations of at least two things, that is an economical issue and a political ideological issue. We can feel there is a strong discontent with capitalism as a political system, and at the same time an equally strong feeling that a representative democracy is not well equipped to go against that, and so has to be reinvented. I felt the whole day long that something like that was at stake here, that we have to find new ways to do that. And actually that's what we try also to promote in A+. But to come to my second point, I think that all of this, and it has been discussed a lot today, has to do with a kind of idea of what can be public, and so being architects, we think immediately of kind of public space and how we can work on public space. And this today, I was thinking that there might be a big danger in this being so obsessed with this public space and jumping too quickly to a too literal thinking about an actual space. Because the public space, if you would see it as a place of political change, is actually an idea that is closely linked to and always evokes specific events and places. Let's say, for instance, the Paris of 1968, where street protests suddenly seemed enough to make a whole societal system collapse. And this kind of discomfort many people feel at this moment with the way things are going does make us think often that by changing public space and by working on public space and by making different kinds of meetings between people possible in public space will do the trick again somehow. But actually, I think that what made, at that time in 1968, not to talk about 1789 of course, but what made that possible was probably the fact, less the street action in itself, but that the street action was like a kind of, or the public space was a tool for people to identify themselves with the moment that was already there. There was a kind of momentum of political change that was already there. And I won't go very deeply into that momentum, but it was, you could say that it was a specific moment of modernity that really broke through at that moment, and that afterwards could have been identified also with consumerism instead of revolutionary insights. But I won't go very deep into that. But I think that basically if we speak now about a new way to think about architectural and urbanistic practices, that we should think about tools that also rethink what public is and work with it in find tools that recognize that the public is a mental thing, and if it exists, only does so in quite formatted, say, cultural situations where people consciously decide to take leave of certain vested interests and positions to discuss openly about a thing that is at stake, and eventually might also come to radical and good solutions at that moment and in that way. So I think that, and I was very enthusiastic about many proposals today that actually went in that direction to define systems of bringing people together, to mediate, to rethink political consensus, to rethink how people are involved into things, to call architects mediators. I think that's actually really a way in which an architectural practice should maybe be able to rethink the public and public space much more than actually designing benches or attractive, shiny new buildings. So that was my very good feeling actually of this day, which goes a bit, which, however, I should say, I was, well, start again this long sentence. This good feeling came at a good moment because I have been thinking for a whole day yesterday about an editorial note for the next issue of A+, which is about the Belgian prize, which is like an important prize for the best practices. And actually, if you see what comes out of it, is usually, I mean, I was not with the jury, so I was just following what was happening, and what I saw was that actually there's a lot of projects that are more or less interesting and well designed, etc., but that the baseline of it this year is basically quite aesthetical, and it is not that much really inventive practices. So the accent and the kind of choice the jury made this year was very much onto the design practice as a very narrow and closed on itself kind of thing. And I was really a bit worried about that, because not so long before also I spoke to an editor-in-chief of Bauwelt, the German magazine, and he told me that he had a big problem because he didn't find any subscribers anymore, or he had really big difficulty at finding subscribers, not because people were not interested in the images, because the website worked very well, but because people don't want to read anymore. They don't want to think anymore about what is at stake. So what he sees is that actually people buy Bauwelt to see some plans and pictures, but never to think about what is behind them, what is at stake, how this really makes a difference in the world of architecture and urbanism. And I think, or I feel that this is also in Belgium a huge problem, and then you can also see, or you can understand why, for instance, in Istanbul, I know the situation a little bit and I see what your worry is absolutely, that is that people see some odd objects and in a kind of narcissistic way they completely identify with an image of I'm in the middle of the action, but actually the action is decided for somewhere completely elsewhere, and is probably very damaging for true action and for kind of true society where you could say discussion and if it probably also discord can have its place, but have its place in the right way. So I think, well, that's basically my point. I think that architects have somehow, or the majority of architects, I fear, have a bit forgotten that their first work is to think and read and see where they are operating instead of trying to make these fantastic images that you never know of whether they're real or virtual. And I think that was the kind of shocking thing about your pictures, that is that you don't know if it's real or not, that you even have to ask, like, or say, this is the real one, this is the wrong one. So it really says about a global situation in architecture where we try to fight against, and so I'm very happy also about this day, but it's a very strange and problematic place to be in a way.